Hello, class. My topic for speech 3 is the responsibility for CTE in the pro sports scene. The purpose of this essay is to pinpoint who's responsible for the people that get TBIs and CTEs instead of just putting the blame on the pro sports scene. The audience is aimed towards people that spectate sports and blame and accuse them of bad player safety around the head area. Have you ever watched a pro game and a player got a concussion and wondered if the pro sports itself is the problem when it comes to player safety, or someone else is at fault and should be responsible for the amount of players becoming injured? Anyone that's played any level of sports knows that the possibility of concussion is likely to occur, but happens more in high contact sports such as basketball, football, soccer, rugby, and boxing, to name a few. And no matter level of competition you still run the same risk of an injury to the head. The brain, like the heart, is an organ that is essential to live, and any hit to it is like taking time off your life. In the body, I'll be mentioning very popular cases of pro athletes having serious brain injuries that led to irreversible damage to the brain. Another point will be the causes of CTE and what's the science behind the CTEs and TBIs and a concussion. The brain is surrounded by a cerebral spinal fluid causing the brain to sit in the skull like a soup. When you suffer a concussion, the brain hits the side of the skull, and not only at the point of the impact, but rebounds and hits the opposite side, causing damage to the brain. You may expect symptoms like dizziness, nausea, sensitivity to light, loss of memory, etc. Any hit that causes a concussion is bad because of sudden acceleration and deceleration of the brain. A concussion that is front to back is easier to recover from than a concussion from side to side, which causes more injury. According to an article from the Journal of Neuropathy and Experimental Neurology called Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy in athletes, progressive tauopathy after repetitive head injury, states acceleration and deceleration forces are thought to be more important in events in a concussion. It also states front to back injuries result in relatively good recovery, whereas lateral side to side injuries produce the most injury, while injury directly related to sensitivity of generating force. Concussions and TBIs become worse when they are not reported and have a higher chance of occurring again. This happens most of the time in youth sports, where the more concussive events occur, the more risk the athlete faces for another worse concussion to happen. In the same article called an article called Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy: The Impact on Athletes, it states that it is known that the youth population is rather resistant to reporting concussive events. This attitude, unfortunately, perpetuates further concussive events, since a history of concussions increases the risk of further concussions. Now that you know how a concussion happens, now we're going to study popular athletes and their cases. I wanted to bring up some popular cases of TBIs and CTEs in athletes, one of them being a professional wrestler and two NFL players, one former and one that is in the league right now. Chris Benoit was an American professional wrestler, which is a sport that experiences lots of head contact. Was found dead suicide after murdering his wife and son. He was said to have suffered many blows to the head throughout his career, after which he reported to show signs of depression. According to an article called Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy: The Impact on Athletes, it states that he sustained multiple blows to the head over his career. It also states that an autopsy later revealed the randomly distributed neurofibrillary and ghost tangles in his neocortex and subcortical ganglia and brainstem nuclei, and was later reported to have CTE. Next up is Aaron Hernandez, a former NFL player who played tight end for the New England Patriots. Was found dead in jail after he hung himself while being convicted of murder of, of murder and of murder. In an article from the Boston University called Aaron Hernandez, CTE Worst Seen by BU Experts in a Young Person, it states that Hernandez, just 27 when he hung himself with a bedsheet, was riddled with stage 3 CTE. To a degree that Ann McKee states, we've never seen it in our 468 brains, except for individuals which are much older. It was the worst CTE for his age of 27, in which he only played 3 seasons of the NFL, which indicates that he suffered way more brain damage than what he did in the NFL. A good visual for this is this. This shows normal 27-year-old brain on this side, and this is Aaron Hernandez's brain when he died. It just shows the difference between what happens when your brain goes through a CTE. My next guy is Tua Tagovailoa, which is the current Dolphins quarterback, who received a scary hit during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals on September 29th, 2022, where Tua hit his head on the turf and immediately showed signs of a concussion when his arms and fingers locked up, which is a sign of fencing response. He still plays today in 2023, and it is impossible to tell if he suffers from CTE because it is only diagnosed after death. But it shows that in an event how fast something like a concussion can happen, and if untreated, might happen again in the future. Overall, concussions are no joke, and if you experience one, report it because you never know. In conclusion, in the case of Aaron Hernandez, it shows that even though he was diagnosed with CTE stage 3 when he played in the NFL for 3 seasons, he shows that it just goes to show that he didn't just gain CTE from those 3 seasons where, yes, he might have sustained a bunch of hits to the head, but that bad of a case can't just happen in 3 seasons in the NFL. It had to have happened before in his collegiate and high school years of playing whatever sport he played, may it be football, wrestling, or any sports that he played. In other cases, like Chris Benoit, had been in the pro wrestling scene. He took no time off for concussions, which was normal back then for wrestling because players didn't want to take off. Which, like I said earlier, causes worse injuries if you don't report a concussion and follow the procedures that come with a concussion protocol. After Tua got hit, he is still playing, and he started playing in 2020, and after only 2 years had a very scary incident. Might mean he started to develop or worsen CTE, but we never know. It shows that a lack of player safety and player integrity when a concussion occurs is the one that should be held accountable for CTE in pro sports and sports in general. Yes, at the time, it may seem harmless when getting a concussion not to report it because it's a concussion. What's going to do to me? But things can add up and affect you in the worst ways possible, which in turn not only hurts you, but it also hurts the people around you, sometimes in irreversible ways.